The mountains of Malaga rise like ancient sentinels, their jagged peaks carved by centuries of wind and rain. Below them, narrow trails snake along sheer cliffs, where every step demands precision and respect. This is a land that calls to the bold, tathos who seek adventure in the raw and untamed beauty of nature. But for all its breathtaking views and adrenaline-fueled climbs, this landscape is not forgiving. Two climbers, drawn by the challenge and the promise of the extraordinary, set out to conquer these cliffs. They were experienced, skilled, and prepared, or so they believed. Yet, nature has a way of humbling even the strongest, reminding us that the wilderness is not a playground, but a force of its own. What happened in those final moments? Was it a single misstep, an unpredictable shift in the weather, or something else lurking in the unforgiving terrain? Their journeys began with passion and determination, but they ended in tragedy. This is the story of two lives lost in Malaga's mountains and the silent, untamed world that became their final resting place. This is Risky Reality, where risks become reality. Before we dive into this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and to like this video. Lost to the Heights, the final moments of two climbers in Malaga. Malaga, Spain, a land where rugged mountains meet the deep blue of the Mediterranean, where ancient pathways snake through sheer cliffs, and where the wind carries the whispers of adventurers who never returned. It is a paradise for climbers, hikers, and thrill-seekers, but it is also unforgiving. The mountains do not yield. They do not offer second chances. Two young climbers, one from Britain, one from Ireland, came to this landscape with the same dream: to conquer its heights, to test their limits against nature itself. But in the end, nature won. This is their story. The Brit. He had always loved pushing himself to the edge, literally. At just 20 years old, the young British climber had spent years honing his skills, chasing the adrenaline rush that came with scaling treacherous cliffs. Malaga was his next great challenge, and the legendary Caminito del Rey was the perfect place to prove himself. Once known as the most dangerous walkway in the world, the Caminito del Rey had a history of tragedy. For years, the crumbling wooden planks and rusted beams had been left abandoned, dangling over a gorge more than 700 feet deep. After a series of fatal accidents, it was closed off and rebuilt into a safer, more modern trail. But even with the renovations, danger still lurked in its steps, especially for those who sought risks beyond the designated paths. The morning was crisp and clear as he and his friends arrived at the trailhead. Sunlight spilled over the cliffs, warming the limestone and casting long shadows over the valley below. The air smelled of dust and wild herbs, carried by the wind that whistled through the narrow gorge. He wasn't content with simply hiking the pathway like a tourist. He wanted something more, something real, something only a true climber could understand. That's when he spotted Puente del Mono, the monkey bridge. It was part of a Via Ferrata route, a challenge meant for experienced climbers, where steel cables and iron rungs were bolted into the rock face, creating a vertical playground for those who dared to scale it. It was a test of skill, strength, and nerve. But he didn't use ropes. No harness. No safety net. His friends watched nervously as he climbed higher, his fingers gripping the steel fixtures, his body moving with practiced ease. The world fell away beneath him, just sky, stone, and the endless drop below. At 30 meters, he was confident. At 40 meters, he was unstoppable. Then, a slip. His foot missed the next rung. His balance wavered. A fraction of a second, but that was all it took. The fall was brutal. His body slammed against the rock before tumbling into the abyss, the impact sending shockwaves through his limbs. When he finally came to a stop, he was motionless. His friends screamed his name, their voices swallowed by the wind. They scrambled to call for help, their hands shaking as they dialed emergency services. A rescue helicopter roared to life, slicing through the sky as mountain rescue teams mobilized. They arrived within minutes, descending swiftly to where he lay. But it was too late. His heart had stopped. His body had already surrendered. Despite desperate attempts to revive him, The medics knew the truth before they even reached the hospital. He was gone. The mountains had claimed another. The Irish climber. 1 month later, another life would be lost in those same mountains. She was 21, a seasoned climber who had spent years challenging herself on rock faces across Europe. Climbing was her passion, her freedom, her way of feeling truly alive. Malaga had always been on her list, a dream destination, known for its towering limestone cliffs and endless routes for climbers willing to push themselves. She had arrived with a friend, another experienced climber, and together, they had spent the day scaling the walls of El Chorro, a breathtaking canyon that attracted elite climbers from around the world. The rock was warm under their fingers, the sun casting golden light over the valley. They climbed until their muscles burned, until their fingers were raw, until they had conquered another impossible route. As the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, they packed up their gear, exhausted but exhilarated. It had been a perfect day. But then they made a mistake. The path down was supposed to be simple, a short hike back to their car. But somewhere along the way, they took a wrong turn. The familiar trail faded into something narrower, steeper, more treacherous. The ground beneath them crumbled with each step. The drop-offs grew steeper, the rocks more unstable. They had wandered into a place where there was no safe way down. Then, disaster. She slipped first. The loose gravel beneath her feet shifted, sending her body plunging toward the edge. She tried to catch herself, arms flailing for something, anything, to stop the fall. But there was nothing. The world blurred as she tumbled. The drop was over 100 meters, the kind of fall no one survives. Her friend watched in horror, his breath catching in his throat as she disappeared into the ravine. He had slipped too, his foot skidding against the crumbling path, but somehow, miraculously, he had caught himself on a ledge. Heart pounding, his fingers raw from gripping the rock, he stared down into the abyss where she had fallen. She was gone. The weight of shock settled over him, numbing his body, making it hard to breathe. Somehow, he fumbled for his phone, hands shaking as he dialed 112 emergency services. Someone fell, he gasped. 800 meters. Near El Chorro. The rescue team arrived quickly, but there was nothing to be done. The special mountain intervention group descended into the ravine, their faces grim, their movements efficient. They had seen this too many times before. She was found at the bottom, surrounded by the very cliffs she had come to climb. The mountains had taken her too. The unforgiving wild. Malaga's cliffs have stood for thousands of years. They have seen the rise and fall of empires, the passage of time, and the footsteps of those who dared to challenge them. They do not care for experience. They do not care for skill. They do not care for how much you love the climb. The mountains are beautiful, but they do not forgive. For two young climbers, Malaga was meant to be an adventure, a story to tell, a dream fulfilled. But one wrong step, one small miscalculation, turned that dream into a nightmare. They came seeking the thrill of the wild. But the wild does not bargain. It only takes. The mountains of Malaga are breathtaking, but beauty often comes with danger. The tragic deaths of these two young climbers are stark reminders that even the most skilled and fearless can fall victim to a single misstep, a single miscalculation. Their stories should not just be tales of loss, but lessons for those who seek adventure in wild places. Nature rewards those who respect it, but punishes those who underestimate it. Know the terrain. Research the route before you set out. Mistakes, like the wrong turn that led to the Irish climber's fall, can mean the difference between life and death. Use safety gear. The British climber's fall may have been preventable had he used proper equipment. Ropes, harnesses, and helmets aren't just for beginners. They're for survival. Even experienced climbers can lose their grip. Never climb alone. Both victims had companions, but in a moment of crisis, even a friend can always save you. However, having a partner means having someone to call for help, administer first aid, or guide you back to safety. Respect your limits. The mountains do not care how confident you are. Nature doesn't play favorites. If a path looks too dangerous, if conditions feel off, or if fatigue starts creeping in, turn back. The summit will always be there. Always tell someone your plan. Let someone know your route and expected return time. If something goes wrong, rescuers need to know where to find you before it's too late. These two climbers sought adventure and challenge. They loved the wild, the feeling of being on the edge. But the mountains have no mercy for even the most passionate explorers. Adventure should push your limits, but it should never ignore them.